you only test your drug on women, you can only market it to women. You can't say, yeah, this will work in guys too. And that's just the way the FDA works. So their thing is coming to market at this low temperature. Moderna's vaccine is coming to market at a higher temperature. They're very similar technologies, and it may be that Pfizer down the road will do the second set of experiments to see what the lowest temperature they can keep this thing stable at. And they may come out later and say, well, yeah, minus 10 degrees is perfectly fine. We just weren't screwing around when we did this.
Mm-hmm.
So
bottom line, not rushed.
Absolutely not
It's
rushed.
different.
It's different.
If you didn't understand any of the last, 45
Was it
minutes
really?
of what he said.
I'm sorry.
Bottom line, it's different. It's just different.
Yeah. And it's much easier to make these. It's way easier to just make a strand of mRNA, inject it into your body, and make your body make the vaccine instead of trying to make some other organism make the vaccine, purify it, and stick it in you. Mm-hmm. It's just so much simpler. You're cutting out the middleman, the stupid one-celled creature.
Well, you could have just said that.
Well, I know, but I know. Our audience is pretty sophisticated, but I just want people to understand the beauty of the science behind this and that we're not bullshitting. This was not rushed to market. Now, do we have long-term data on this? No, we do not. And so could it become I Am Legend? It's possible, highly unlikely. One of the things I talked to Jim and Sam about was they've only tested this in 20,000 people because of the phase 3 trial was 20,000 placebos, 20,000 vaccine patients, right? So you can, if you have an illness or an adverse event that's serious that is in 1 in 10 people, then you would have picked that up pretty quickly. But what if it's 1 in 1,000 people?
Well, that's interesting because they're now saying to not take the vaccine if you do have serious allergic reactions to things.
Okay. Yeah. So
I heard that on the news today.
There are people with illnesses like Parsonage-Turner syndrome. That's what they're talking about. Those are people that get some really wild adverse reactions, usually first time to maybe a vaccine or something like that. Mm-hmm. And then they're counseled not to take vaccines. But if you just have allergic rhinitis like I do, that wouldn't stop you from doing it. But so if you have something that causes 1 in 1,000 people to have an adverse reaction, you might only see 20 people when you're only doing 20,000. You would only have maybe 20 cases, and it could be more or less because that's just statistics. But what if it's 1 in 10,000? Now maybe you're only going to have 2. Maybe you won't have any. It's possible if you rolled a 10,000-sided dice that, a certain number would not come up twice. So there's a possibility we wouldn't see those. So we will see those in post-marketing when we start treating 1 million people or, and now 100 million people and then 1 billion people. What if it's 1 in 1 million? Then we would not have expected to see it at all in this episode. But if we do 350 million people in this country, we'd expect to see around 300 cases, 300 to 350 cases of whatever it is. Still very rare. The risk to the person is very low. The risk to society is not trivial. So that's the caveat to this is we don't know what the long-term effects of this is going to be. There's no way we could know. We do know what the long-term effect of not doing it is more of this bullshit.
More of this bullshit.
So if we get 55% of people, 56% of people to take the vaccine, we will be at the threshold of herd immunity. And we talked about this a little bit last week.
So if you are one of those ones, if you are one of the people who takes the vaccine, then you don't have to necessarily worry about it anymore?
Pretty much. I mean, it's 94% effective in the clinical trial, and it was 100% effective against people going to the ICU and dying.
Okay. So you wouldn't, of course, you would still wear your mask and things until the herd immunity is decided, but, just to be polite, but you don't have to necessarily worry about it.
Right. You would worry about it a lot less. Okay. Absolutely. You remember that year I got influenza, I had the vaccine, and I had gotten exposed to the flu mist vaccine that year too because of the boys, and still got it, but I didn't die. I was fine in a day. you know. Sick as crap for a day, but then I was okay. So people may still get it, and so you still want to be careful, and we want to be careful anyway. But yeah, you're right. But listen, just hitting the threshold of herd immunity isn't going to be enough, because then we're at that point where one person's going to infect 0.9 people. That's what herd immunity means when we're at the threshold. So 1,000 people would infect 900, which would affect 810, which would affect 720. Multiply that times, 1 million. And you've still got some large numbers. Plus, each one of those generations is at least 21 days long, so it would take forever. But if we could get 90% of people to be immune, either because they had it already or because they took the vaccine, this thing could really be over in a couple of months. I haven't run the actual numbers to see, but it would. The more people we get to do it, and the higher percentage, the quicker this will be over. And that's just pure math.